And as we all know, an important decision came out of the Jefferson County District Attorney's Office this morning, and we appreciate you coming down on such short notice. As you can imagine, we have a lot going on today, so we knew that there would be some interest on your part to have a chance to chat with us a little bit, ask some questions. I want to just preface that what I'm going to tell you or what I can share with you are only things that I'm able to share with you. Questions about the grand jury process, questions about what role the Jefferson County District Attorney's Office played, all those type of things, probably would be best to be specifically addressed with the Jefferson County District Attorney. So we just want to be able to just sit down, have a conversation with you, and I also just want to say, and I think Chris may have told you this already, I have only some limited time, so I think we have about 15-20 minutes, so we'll get through this as quickly as we can and answer as many questions as possible. So I'll just kind of recap what's been going on since March 6th. As you know, that I came here March 6th, or excuse me, just before March 6th, just a few days before that, but on March 6th was the shooting incident in which Naeschylus Carter had been shot by one of our Aurora Police Department officers. As the days followed, we realized that there was a conflict of interest in moving that case over to the Arapahoe County District Attorney's Office. So it was decided at that time that the case would move over to the Jefferson County District Attorney's Office for review. And during that time, and following our giving that file and case to the Jefferson County DA, they conducted a very thorough, independent investigation. At the conclusion of their part of that investigation, it was the decision of the Jefferson County District Attorney to move that case over to grand jury. And that grand jury was convened in the Arapahoe County, in Arapahoe County. This morning, like you, we learned the results of that grand jury. The grand jury decided not to indict the officer. So, of course, questions now come up as to where do we go from here. So, as many of you know, we did open up an internal investigation once this incident occurred. The bulk of that investigation had to remain on hold until we were able to actually get through this part of the investigation with Jefferson County. So that part of now the internal investigation will now commence forward. The commander of the Internal Investigations Bureau has been told directly by me that this is of the highest priority and that this investigation needs to be completed as quickly as possible. I'm sure the next question is going to be, how long will that take? And I can only tell folks here and people in the community to please be as patient as possible. It could take several weeks, but that we will work as quickly as possible to get it done and complete. The officer will still remain working with the Aurora Police Department. He has been assigned to a non-enforcement capacity, and he will remain in that capacity until the conclusion of the internal investigation and determination of whatever actions come from that. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and open it up with any questions that you all might have.
What's your reaction to the grand jury decision? Are you on any level of relief? This is a highly decorated officer.
Well, I think for us, and the one thing I think is important to know is that the grand jury process is incredibly confidential. Even the folks within the department, including myself, had absolutely no idea what was going on within that grand jury room. So we don't know what evidence has been presented other than the report, which we've just received, so I haven't had much of a chance to really review it. So for us right now, it's getting through this one hurdle, but again, we still have more to do.
I have to believe, though, that the initial reaction has to be huge relief.
Well, I think, again, there's still more to do in the investigation, and there's still further things that we need to do in review of the report.
Well, I guess maybe tell us what that is, because the grand jury and whether to charge your officer with murder is sort of like the highest authority. What you do on the internal level is sort of a little bit inside baseball for people. I mean, would you get rid of this officer after the grand jury said that he did no wrong?
Well, again, we've got to look at all the evidence that's there. We have to conduct our own review, and once we have that completed, then we'll make that decision then.
Chief, any concerns about reaction from the community on this?
Well, thank you for asking that. We have been in contact with a number of folks in the community representing a number of different organizations already. We're going to be meeting with those organizations and individuals over the next few days. We've been really doing our best throughout these last several months of keeping our community as informed as possible as to what is occurring and what the future holds with further investigation of this incident.
Can you explain to the public, if the grand jury's already cleared your guy, why do you feel compelled to go do your own internal investigation?
Because that's our policy.
And you can't do it until you've got the grand jury results, I think?
Correct.
And I guess to follow up on that, what are you looking for in that internal investigation? Are you looking for, did everybody act as trained, or does something needs to be, additional training needs to happen? Like, what are sort of, maybe if not specifically on this case, but in general, what it would be what the internal investigation would be looking for after the grand jury spent months investigating and said everything is...
It's a complete review. Along with that will be a complete tactical review, because we'll want to look at how the planning process went, what tactics were used, all those things. So yes, to answer your question, we could develop recommendations for retraining. We could develop recommendations for new policies. There's all sorts of things that could go forth following that internal investigation. And again, it is policy, and it is part of the process that we will use.
Have you talked to Officer Jerothe after this came down?
I have not yet, no.
What about Mr. Vinzant's family? You've been in contact with them throughout this. Have you talked to them today?
I have not spoken with them today. The last time we met with the family was this last summer. We had a meeting with them. We assured the family that, following the grand jury, that there would continue to be a thorough review of the incident.
Is there any indication, Chief, that the officer involved or the officers involved failed to follow department policy?
Until I can see the whole case in its entirety, I can't answer that question. It would be very premature on my part to do so. Again, keep in mind, all the information that was compiled by the Jefferson County District Attorney has been confidential all these months. So until we have a chance to actually sit down and review it, it would be, again, speculation on my part.
Which important was it that he did his own separate investigation? You guys did a very thorough investigation and turned your results over to the DA. He decided to conduct his own independent investigation aside from what Aurora Police Department did. How important was that to this case?
I think it's very important. I think it lends a great deal of credibility to the process. It shows that there was independence in the investigatory process. So I think having two different organizations looking at the investigation, having a number of different eyes taking a look at the investigation, again, just goes towards showing the credibility of that, and then having the case presented before a grand jury.
Sir, have you ever had to discharge your weapon and kill somebody in your career?
No, I have not.
Can you still talk about, this is not a decision that police officers take lightly?
Absolutely not.
Let me ask this in a question. How do police officers approach a situation where they have to draw their gun and possibly have to take somebody's life?
They approach it with a great deal of caution and a great deal of thought. The one thing that I've been incredibly impressed as far as this police department is the fact that our officers are very conscientious. There have been a number of situations where officers have not had to use deadly force when they were presented with situations where they might have had to. In those situations where deadly force was used, those officers, made a very thoughtful decision, and it was a very split-second decision. So, again, we're looking at a situation in which we've taken months. We've had a number of people analyzing and trying to determine, whether the actions were appropriate. When an officer is put in that situation, they are having to make that decision in a split second.
Do you wish there had been body cams in this case?
I think body cams would have been helpful. I don't know if it would have necessarily told us everything that we would have wanted to know. I think when you look around the country at body cams, they don't capture everything, but certainly they're helpful.
So why didn't you have one? I mean, you guys have your fair share of body cams already, have ordered more. How come you didn't have one?
Right now, I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you.
You should know, I know you mentioned that you have not read all the report on one of the pages. In the interview with the grand jury, Officer Jerothe said that upon seeing that that the suspect had no weapon, he became emotionally upset after he fired a shot.
I've seen that many times with officers. It's not unusual.
Can you explain to the public who may be confused if a guy's unarmed, how it is that you can still present a deadly force to an officer or a deadly threat to an officer?
I'm sorry, what now?
Can you explain to the public who may be confused, they hear, hey, this guy wasn't armed, how could this ever be justified? Can you explain how there are circumstances where someone might pose a deadly threat to an officer, even if they're not armed?
Well, again, I think it goes back to what knowledge do you have of the person that you are encountering, what threats are there, what's in the mind of the officer. There's a whole host of things that go into that. I can't give you one concrete example. When you look at deadly force encounters throughout the country, every single one of them are different. They pose different nuances. They pose different types of circumstances. It could be dark, it could be day, it could be one subject, it could be multiple subjects. So to say there's one certain avenue to where you would make that kind of a decision, I can't even go there.
But can you paraphrase from this report that's now public, that jerking motion and his hand in the pocket that kind of gave that impression?
I haven't read the report thorough enough to give comment on that. right now.
Based on your experience, Chief, though, can you tell us about the officers who were dispatched, the SWAT officers and the DART officers, basically the special team dispatched to arrest Vinzant, were told in an email that he is dangerous, that he's violent, that he's a gang member, and that he is unknown to basically, he's warned that he's not going to go down without a fight. Can you talk about sort of, as a police officer, when you receive that communication before you go to arrest someone, that must sort of set you in a frame of mind of what you're going to do versus, you know, serving another search warrant where you're not given that description?
Well, I think in any situation, we would much prefer to have as much information on a person as possible. There are many situations we don't have that luxury. Of course, when we do have that opportunity to have that type of intelligence on somebody, certainly that goes into the thought process, but also goes into the planning process of how you're going to encounter that person, given that they may pose a threat.
Chief, a lot of times when the police department conducts its own investigation and forwards information to the district attorney's office, they'll make a recommendation to the DA. Did you guys, in this case, when you conducted your investigation into that officer-involved shooting, do that?
No, I don't believe we did. No, we handed the case over. We took it as far as we did, and we turned the case over to the Jefferson County District Attorney and said, take it from here.
Based on what you know about this case, was your officer justified in doing what he did?
Again, I have not had a chance to review all of the information that was compiled by the Jefferson County District Attorney. They did their own very thorough, extensive investigation. Until I have a chance to review that case fully, I'm going to refrain from making any kind of, statement as to whether I believe the shooting was appropriate.
Chief, you said that you will be meeting with community groups. I know we haven't seen a lot of this, but are you concerned about protests here, or?
Well, I mean, we've seen around the country that is happening. The police departments and police officers are charged with protecting the constitutional rights of our citizens. Part of that is protecting people's free speech, the First Amendment. So, of course, if folks want to come and express their First Amendment rights, we will do everything within our authority to protect them to be able to do that freely. Of course, we hope that will remain peaceful, and so far, what I've seen here, that's the case.
Has your office consulted with any of other jurisdictions in the country who've been through the same sort of scenario? Have you made any calls?
I've spoken to colleagues around the country who've been experiencing similar things.
I have to believe you've read that.
I'm sorry?
Did you get advice from them? Or?
I'm just kind of hearing, I didn't necessarily get advice, just kind of hearing what they've experienced.
Is there anything to take away from this, Chief?
As far as...
Just, I mean, every incident is a learning experience, obviously. And
well, I think the thing to take away from this is, number one, this is an incredibly tragic situation for everybody involved. Everybody involved. There isn't any one person from Mr. Vinzant Carter's family or the officer's family and the officer himself who hasn't been incredibly impacted by this. This is not something that we take lightly. Obviously, you guys wouldn't be here right now if it were. I think if there's a takeaway here is that we want to assure the community and we want to assure our officers that we will always conduct very thorough reviews and investigations of our actions. We will do our best to learn from those actions, and we will take appropriate steps to rectify anything that we may need to do better next time.
If Jerothe has been cleared by the grand jury, why can't he return to the SWAT team duty immediately?
I've made the decision that until we've completed the internal affairs part of the investigation, that he remains on a non-enforcement capacity.
Now, I assume you read at least a one-page summary from the DA's office saying the grand jury cleared this guy because it appeared that the suspect was drawing a gun out of his pocket, his hand. Can you talk about that? I know you've read at least that much about, so the public understands why it is the grand jury might reach this conclusion.
Well, that's the conclusion of the grand jury, and I definitely respect that. I want to see the full report and the full investigation before I'm prepared to make an opinion one way or the other.
Has the department made any tactical or procedural changes in light of this case, and do you expect to going forward?
Well, I think you might recall when we held the press conference regarding this incident back in March, one of the things I said that we were going to do is do a full revision of our use of force policies. That's in the works right now, and I'm hoping we're going to actually have that online by the first of the year, just after a few days after that. We also talked about our internal affairs policies and procedures. We've completely revamped that. We've moved our internal affairs office out of the headquarters here because people who were coming to headquarters to file complaints felt intimidated, if you will, so we moved into a separate office building. We added a fifth commander who is now overseeing our internal affairs. So I think it gives much more gravitas to that office and the role that commander plays. The other thing that we've done is we've really enhanced our community outreach. I think that's been an incredibly important part. And it's not just special officers who are doing that, it's also including our patrol officers. We've been hitting churches, particularly on Sundays, meeting with churches and other faith-based organizations to meet with folks and let them get to know us, ask questions that they may have about whether it's this particular incident or anything else that's going on. We've been spending a lot of time in the schools, not only just with our school resource officers, but sitting down with student leaders, in some of our high schools and actually talking about police-community relations and discussing the importance of dialogue between the police and the community. The other thing that we're doing is working with youth right now to have them help us create a handbook that young people around the city could use when interacting with police officers and so forth. And again, our patrol officers have been getting out there. They're visiting businesses. They're getting out on foot. Our officers get it. They understand the importance of being out there and interacting and engaging the community. So, it's not just policy issues. There's also just that philosophy of being out in the community and being visible and enhancing that communication. And, just like for today, once we knew the news, we put our own emails and texts out to a variety of community members to let them know what was going on, so that they had an opportunity to hear it from us first rather than just hearing it from the media, that they felt like they were in the loop, if you will. So a lot of what we're doing there's a lot more to do. There's a lot more work that we're going to be doing in 2016, but I'm feeling pretty confident that the direction the department's going.
Chief, are you on any level concerned that because of the environment that the police are currently experiencing across the country, rightfully or wrongfully, there's been a number of really high-profile cases where officers across the country have been indicted and not indicted for police-involved shootings. Are you concerned that this case, even though your officer has been cleared by an independent investigation, that some of the community will say, well, they're all in bed together. It doesn't matter that it was a different district attorney's office and we don't trust. There is some level of distrust. Are you concerned that no matter what you've done to make sure that this is independent, that there's some in the community will still say, don't
Well, I think you've been in the business long enough to know that not everybody is going to agree with a decision or a direction that something is going. So, of course, we're going to have people who are either going to be, who are going to feel in agreement to the decision and folks who are not going to be in agreement. those who are not in agreement, again, that's where I think it's really important for us to continue to make sure we are building those relationships with them and having that dialogue. You know, we know that in policing, unexpected things happen, and I think it's important that as a department we be as transparent as possible on a day-to-day basis, and that includes folks who may be critical of our actions at times. So we embrace that opportunity to actually sit down with them and have those discussions.
Thank you all, that's all the
Thanks,
time.
Chief.
I wanted to, you don't care, but just pass out, we have our initiatives for enhancing community relations, and it kind of outlines some of the things that we're doing within the agency. We'll actually be revising this here pretty soon, but I think it might answer some of the questions that you've had as well about community outreach and so forth.
Well, we will look forward to speaking with you when you're done with your internal investigation.